Welcome to episode 46 of the Jiu-Jitsu Therapist Podcast. We have Coach Kevin Kearns with us today. He runs a website called burnwithkearns.com. He is a strength and conditioning coach. We discuss his unique approach to strength and conditioning, his emphasis on functional strengthening. He has got a ton of experience training mixed martial arts fighters like Kenny Florian, Marcus Davis. We get into some of his favorite exercises, his training philosophies, just a ton of great information on his podcast, how he tailors his techniques to, martial arts fighters, to, jiu-jitsu practitioners. So it's a great podcast. We got through a lot of great stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy it. A lot of great tips in here on keeping you healthy and building your strength up, and hope you all enjoy the podcast. Here we go. Kevin, how's it going?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for coming on.
Where am I not supposed to swear in this thing?
You can say whatever you want.
Fuck it. Anyway.
There you go. So, Kevin, man, give me a little bit of background. Where did you grow up? How did you start?
Where did I grow up? How did I start? I grew up in Everett, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston. And the interesting story is I'm kind of the real karate kid, as I like to say it. I was a kid that was always picked last. Matter of fact, you can find my book on Amazon, Always Picked Last. So I sucked at every sport. Literally was picked last for everything. And I could play softball, forget football. They used to just throw me to block people. Basketball, that was like putting a basketball in a tennis game, watching me play basketball and dribble. So forget that. Could play softball just because the ball was big. And I had a life-changing event at 12. My father died of alcoholism at 48. And I'm 51 now. Not bad, huh?
You got some muscles.
Got some?
A little bit.
Right?
A little bit.
Huh? A little bit?
Those are all right.
Those all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they weren't built by Curls for Girls. They were built by hitting shit. Anyway.
Hit shit. We'll get into hit.
Anyway.
That's my kid screaming in the background. Sorry.
There you go. But I usually go, shut up. I see, that's what I get the big phone for. I throw the phone to them. I'm just kidding. That's because I got a 14, 15-year-old daughter. What happened was, after he died, the bullying in my neighborhood got worse. And about 6 months of that, a close uncle talked me into taking karate. Walked into my first dojo, United Studios of Self-Defense, changed my life. It's going to be 40 years next year in martial arts.
You're still training?
Still training. I still do Thai on a regular basis, kind of on my own. I train in a very old school kung fu called Jobo Kung Fu. It's not even on the books. It's the original kung fu. One student, one teacher.
What about karate in general? Like, how did that? Because people always talk about, I'm a big jiu-jitsu guy, martial arts, mixed martial arts, all this stuff, and people think, karate's kind of maybe outdated, but you've seen kind of a comeback, I think, in with some of these athletes now doing traditional karate type kicks and movements. But how do you feel karate was useful for you growing up as a kid?
Confidence, discipline, dedication. I still remember the credo, self-defense, self-control, character, etiquette, honor. It kind of gave you a barometer of where to go. And then I got into strength training. Kind of one thing led to another.
What about, as far as training karate, as young kids, you see kids like breaking boards and stuff like that. Did you actually do live sparring or any kind of live contact things?
We were doing full contact karate with no mouthpiece and no gloves back then. That was back in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
You come home with, busted nose, bloody lip, and you're like, yeah, Mom, I'm fine.
Yeah.
These were old school guys. These were
right. So did you ended up kind of kids quit messing with you after that point, or did you kind of have to set an example to get that?
I took care of my best friend in the neighborhood who turned his back on me. I dumped him on his ass one day when he tried to kick me in the ass. Built my confidence up. The rest you're going to have to read in the book, because at the end of the day, one of the things that happened to me is when my father died, I got a really, really bad temper. I realized that anger was better than sadness, because you reverse it and you follow the Zen philosophy. When you're angry, what's under anger?
Mm-hmm.
Under anger is mostly sadness, right? If you look at the root cause of your anger, it's usually sadness. But people think that they look at anger, and anger is an easier emotion. It's more desirable.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you reverse it, so that's why, my anger got channeled, or my sadness got channeled into martial arts.
Yeah.
And martial arts was the true kind of barometer for me to say, okay, you know what? I sucked at everything, but if I put the time in, I can get better at anything. That's what I tell these kids when I go out and speak on anti-bullying. I go, look, what's your thing? People are like, well, you're all about martial arts. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's my gig. Martial arts and fitness is my gig. What's your gig? Is it swimming? Is it acting? Is it horseback riding? One daughter's got horseback riding, the other daughter's got volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
They've both done martial arts. They used to roll with Kenny Florian in my family room, for crying out loud, when they were babies, just for fun. When he came over here and trained. So it's all up to what your thing is.
So how did strength and conditioning come into the mix? So you started with karate, then where did that come in?
The weird thing was, back then we had a Universal at the studio, right? And these guys that were walking around in their 20s that looked like big gyms, back then they were just jacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without steroids. I learned pretty quickly, my father was a building inspector, I learned pretty quickly to establish rapport. I don't know why, I'm really good at getting personable and establishing rapport quickly with people.
Mm-hmm.
I got friendly with these guys, they took me underneath their wing, they started teaching me how to lift weights. Then I realized, crap, you lift weights, you get stronger, you get bigger, you have more bulk, you have more padding, you can take more impact. One thing led to another, and then bang. I got, that was my second love. I've got a third love now that for the past 10 years, I'm a big yoga nut. I'm in yoga at least twice a week.
That's awesome. What kind of yoga do you do?
I do vinyasa flow. So, not Bikram, but I do hot.
Right.
I do warm. And my ex-wife got me into it. And I remember when I used to make fun of it. I used to call it yogurt. Because I thought it was like, what's this all about?
Yeah.
And now you're like, wait a second here. And you really start getting into it. And I know if I don't go twice a week, I can tell when I don't go.
What's off when you don't go?
My whole body. Yoga and martial arts are so connected, because you get that calmness, that serenity, then you have that aggressiveness when you need to. So the combination of the two, I think, is astounding. If people want to do conditioning, you're doing your martial arts, you're doing your strength conditioning, you got to throw in your yoga, your Pilates, because the flexibility, the mindset you get, the serenity, the peace. The biggest thing I learned from yoga is it's a good metaphor for life. Yoga puts you into uncomfortable positions and tells you to fucking breathe.
Yeah.
It's a lot of life, right?
Yeah.
You're on the mat, you're getting choked out, you're close to getting choked out. You want to roll to this side, but you can't. You're like, okay, what do you do? The one thing I always remember about Daniel Gracie, one of my friends, he said, you know what? When you're rolling, you always have your breath.
Right.
You can always breathe.
Yeah.
So I think the connection's really great.
Yeah, I've gotten into. I've done some yoga. I've actually done some Pilates. Just kind of, I'm trying to broaden my horizon for sure. I love yoga. Yoga for like a restorative, for like a recovery, an active, even not even always active recovery, because sometimes you can do a yoga class and they can be tough as shit. It can really work you. But yoga is I think a lot of people are there's a stigma with Pilates and yoga. It's for housewives or women or whatever. But man, it's tough. And if you're a big guy with muscle, you got to hold up that muscle and position and balance yourself. The other thing is like the breathing aspect you brought up, the meditation aspect, like. When you're dealing, like you said, with kids or with life and just crazy shit that's happening to you, man, there's something that happens, there's almost a switch that flips, man. If you can get away for 10 minutes and just do some deep breathing and some nice kind of meditation, man, it can change your perspective like that.
Absolutely. Well, the Kung Fu I take is a big part of Qigong in it, which is like completely different. And my teacher does stuff that doesn't make sense.
Like what?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
I want to hear it. Everyone wants to hear it. Let's go.
All right. So Jobo Kung Fu, he trained with Alex Anatol. Alex Anatol's a Russian. He's a Taoist priest, but he's like 250.
Okay.
Kim, you know what probably heard of a Makawara boy, right?
Say that again?
A Makawara boy, 2x6, the old timers used to plant in the ground, wrap and rope, and strike it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my teacher, Kim, has one custom made that's handheld.
Okay.
And he hits it from angles I ain't never seen before in my life with no gloves.
All right. So just like how did he? Is just conditioning, training? How did he do all this stuff?
It's all combat. It's all combat.
So he's just been putting in the work for years, and it's kind of his body's adapted.
You know, he trained with Alex because he was bullied. He was like one of only 3 masters Alex made. I've seen him take, and everybody's going to think I'm full of crap, but I don't care. I've seen him take a 150-pound tie bag, put 4 to 5 45-pound plates in the bottom, and hit it from this distance away and knock the thing off the chains.
So, for you and I that are kind of, not average Joes, but guys that don't have that kind of skill or whatever that takes, biomechanically, how do you feel like he can generate that kind of power? What do you think that is?
He's using, he's using complete hip rotation, which is a big thing. And there's people can poo-poo this all they want, but there's a angle for your shoulder. People think that this is the best hook. It's actually higher up.
So you're talking about the shoulder kind of elbow, kind of at the temple, and angle down, the fist angle down.
And Marcus Davis, one of my friends and clients, we were discussing that 3 years ago when I got into this. He goes, "Oh yeah, I throw that on the front hands." And if you think about it, you have somebody stand in front of you with a hook, right? And you say, "Okay, give me some strength." Push. You can push them off balance. You have them elevate their elbow. You can't push them. And what happens if you think about the guy who I can't remember his name. You start talking about physiology. You start talking about fascial lines.
Okay.
So you have a fascial line that goes from your pinky all the way through your tricep, shoulder, all the way down to your foot. So the minute you go like this,
angle it down,
your lat comes into play.
Okay.
Now, and if you heard, and then you start looking at that kung fu. That's called this angle. You can practically not break. You won't break your shoulder.
Okay.
I'm telling you, screw around with it.
Do you think it's maybe you're getting a little more, maybe a little more leverage, a little more core, like you're using? I don't know. Like it's I'm not a stand-up guy. So this is kind of.
Leverage, I agree with you. It's leverage. It's physiology. It's all of it because this is called on the tree. Okay, because it's that connection. When you throw a body hook, you see guys throwing body hooks out here. You actually throw it here. That's an old school shovel hook.
Okay, so kind of more to the side.
Almost like an uppercut, right?
Right, sure.
You'll notice if you're pushing somebody, you can't throw them off balance. Out here, you can push the shoulder. I was screwing around a few years ago. I was in Ireland doing certification. I showed a fighter that. He called me the next day. He goes, "I knocked the guy out in the first round with that hook." I went, "What?" He goes, "I just turned it over at the end." I went,
almost.
It's weird stuff.
To me, it looks almost like Chuck Liddell when he kind of threw weird punches, kind of hook punches. It almost looked like Chuck Liddell, but I don't know.
Keith Jardine always had these weird punches too. Or look at when you look at the angle, it's almost like a ridge hand.
Right, it's almost like you're hitting him with the thumb side.
Yeah, with that ridge hand, like what's his name? Oh God, who was the guy that made the karate real popular? Machida.
Oh, Lyoto. Yeah.
Karate come back that was effective. It's his angles.
Yeah. Same guy, Wonder Boy, Stephen Thompson. He's another guy who does some weird stuff, weird angles.
Well, Marcus Davis too. He would throw that lead because he was southpaw. He used to throw that lead sidekick.
Yeah.
He would score with it. It's like just because it's karate doesn't mean the technique isn't valid.
Right. No, for sure. And I think I think techniques evolve. Just like everything. You look at martial. I mean, you can't just be strictly a jiu-jitsu guy now or strictly a karate guy. You got to be a karate guy with takedown defense, or you got to be a jiu-jitsu guy with good takedowns or good, jab to, close the distance. You can't just be one, it can't be like UFC 1, Royce Gracie and some of these other guys.
And you have to be conditioned now too.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's conditioned. you know.
So it's a different level. So I mean, we got a little sidetracked, but that's what I love. I'm a big fan of Kali. You know, one of my teachers was Mark Wiley. You know, who's a PhD and you name it. Probably one of the highest level Kali guys. Still friends.
So once you got into strength training, lifting weights, got a little bit of that under your belt, did that ring a bell? Like, this is what I want to do, or did you kind of go do the college thing? How did it kind of take off from there?
I went to college, right? And what I tell all these kids is, I said, you know what? I turned a hobby into a lifestyle, into a career in business. I never had that plan. So sometimes you have a plan and it follows through, and sometimes you have a plan and it doesn't.
Yeah.
I kind of fell into exercise physiology and date myself in the early 90s or late 80s when it was just coming of age, and then got involved. Sorry, my allergies are killing me. Got involved with a local trainer who was like one of the first personal trainers in Boston.
Okay.
And I just realized that, you know, this is what I want to do. The exercise physiology. The funny part about exercise physiology is I was in nursing at the time, applied to UMass Boston. A friend of mine told me I definitely have to take this class. I was picking classes, and she had already gone there. Got to take this class, Exercise Physiology 101 with Dr. David Thomas. First week in class, I said, that's it, I'm changing my major. And the funny thing was, they couldn't track it. But for some reason, the records, they couldn't track it. I was a sophomore in a junior level class and never found out. and I got like, you know, and the funny story is I was acing the class. I could take tests all day, but my writing still sucked. And I was kind of back then, you know, what did you do back then? These kids think they have it hard today. You got to do a research paper. You go on the web, right? And you do this. We had to, back then. You're pumping coins into the Xerox machine, hoping that on floor 10 in the library that it's going to work. And you go through the journals. Yeah. So I sucked at writing research papers. I had like an A, mid-level A. I tanked in my research paper because I gave my notes to my girlfriend. It was all, I couldn't write, which is kind of funny when you think about it. I couldn't write. Train Hard, Fire, and Easy, I wrote for years, and then it switched to Train. Train magazine now, I write the 40-plus column. I wrote for Grappler. I wrote for Ultimate MMA for years. Written for Fight magazine, so I've written probably 400 articles. The kid that sucked at writing ended up writing all these articles. Wrote a book, and I have a manual for my course and everything else. So right. It's kind of funny, right? When you think about it. And I literally fell in love with the stuff. But what ended up happening is I got a 50 on my research paper. Crushed me. And I'm thinking, and my teacher was really strict. He's like, look, you know, maybe this isn't for you. I remember going home on the highway, pissed off. I used to have my stethoscope because we used to take blood pressure meds for exercise phys. I mean, so into it. That's how into it I was. And I remember being on 93, the old dinosaur, the bridge, and I'm crying and pissed off, and I'm looking at up thing going, I thought this is what I was supposed to do. I thought this was what I was supposed to do. You know, thinking that you have your purpose. Sure. And then every time I get like that, something snaps at me. And I basically said to myself, I go, fuck them. I said, I'm going to stick it out. The next day, I went back to my professor. I looked at him. I go, you know what? I switched my advisor. I said, you're my advisor for the next 3 years. I'm going to be in your face every day. Literally, and that's what I did. At the end of the year, I graduated with, you know, 2.895, a low B. Right. He pulled me aside. We were having a beer in his office. I'm 24 at the time. He said, I'm really proud of you. I go, you're proud of me? You never say that stuff, Dave. He goes, you know what? And this is something I always remember. This is for these young kids out there. It's not always the people that get 4.0s that do well in life. It's the ones that have to struggle to get a B because they know they got to struggle. Yeah. So when I go out and do my lectures for these kids, for anti-bullying talks, we call it, you need grit for the grind. If you don't have the grit, you ain't going to be able to grind.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point, man, because like I think you struggled. And if you don't struggle, everything comes easy. When you do get that one time or that hard moment where something doesn't go your way, man, you if you're somebody that struggled, you can work through it. You've been there before, you know.
Oh, I've been there too many times.
Yeah.
I mean, every time, and I think the biggest thing I've worked on for years now, I'm still working on it, is a concept called let go. Just let go. Just let it happen. I'm a big fan of the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. And sometimes he goes, you're not being done. You're not doing anything. You're being undone.
Yeah.
Just let it happen. Yeah. It's almost like getting on the mat, right?
Sure.
And thinking too far ahead versus just being with it.
It's hard. It's hard to let go in that aspect. It's also hard to let go if something's bugging you. You know, a lot of people. I have a problem with like ruminating on stuff. Like I can't get shit out of my head. If something bothers me, something's on my mind. It's just there and it replays. And you look and if you step back and you think about it, you're like, what is me thinking about this thing really going to change right now, this moment? Nothing. I mean, if I have the opportunity, you know, to do something or act on it, that's fine. But if I'm just sitting there thinking about it over and over, it's going to stress me out and drive me crazy.
Well, and so I love that. The analogy I use is it's flying.
Yeah.
And you're in turbulence.
Yeah.
You can freak out, but is it really going to help anything? No, you're stuck.
Nope.
You can't do much. And an old client of mine was a therapist, and I told her I was having an issue with flying because I used to fly a ton. She says, "Well, let me ask you a question. Are you safe?" Yeah. She goes, "So you're uncomfortable, but you're not safe. You can be uncomfortable but unsafe." She asked me. She goes, "Let me ask you another question. Would it be better if you're flying a plane?" I'm like, "Fuck no, we definitely crash."
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, look at the guy. Not to digress and change gears. Look at the guy. What was it? 2 weeks ago, the woman that got sucked out. The engine blew up. The engine blew up, and the pilot, the female pilot, not that it doesn't matter, the female pilot, they're so well trained, she still put that plane on the ground and only lost one life.
I mean,
come on, the engine blew up.
Yeah, well, that's why they make two, isn't it? They make two engines.
Let's think about it.
yeah, it's pretty traumatic. And you train for that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah. That's the same thing. We're kind of getting a little off topic again, but like look at police officers with all these shootings and stuff. Like you train for that stuff all the time. You know, the police officers do, but when you get in that situation where it's like you got to pull a firearm, make a split-second decision, like.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as training, right?
Yeah.
George Bonnet, one of my friends who started Pure Motion, train the way you play the way you train.
Yeah. I
always tell my kids and my daughter, whoever, when I'm training a competition, when they get pissed off about their, like their performance, as far as the training that day, I go, wouldn't you rather have a bad day in training versus a bad day in the ring?
I mean, that's such a, a bad day in training is a great day, really.
Well, I always tell my clients and everybody else, I go, the days that you don't want to do it are the days that count the most. The days that you're hating it, you're grinding through it, those are the days. The days that you're like, yeah! Those don't matter.
Those are easy days.
That's a coast. That's downhill. The days are like, I'm stressed. I've been up since 3 a.m. I had this podcast. I haven't eaten much all day. My kids are driving me crazy. I got this bill. And your head's spinning. Those are the days that count the most.
Yeah.
My big thing in training, I tell everybody, is commitment and consistency.
So how do you overcome like a day like that you're off or you don't feel like getting out there? How do you do that? How do you either get yourself out of that rut or get your training people that you're training out of the rut?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One of the ways is sometimes you just gotta say fuck it. I always say that. The other thing is, what people don't really understand is sometimes recovery is just as important. So my whole rule is I said, if I have to debate for more than 5 minutes, if I should be exercising or training, I probably need a day off. And 9 times out of 10, that's true. The third thing I would tell people is have a buddy. Because say you're at work and, you're doing this and this and, you know what, Eugene's all charged up to work out, but Coach Kearns, man, I'm exhausted. The kids were up all night. I got to get no sleep. I got to work out with Eugene. I can't let him down. You're all pumped. So you feed off each other.
Right.
You're like, yeah, coach, let's go and train. And I'm like, Eugene's into it. I got to be there for him. He's my training partner.
Right. You feel, accountability. I mean, that's a huge thing, especially if it's not a habit or something you're trying to get into. I think that's why getting like a trainer or doing a class, like, as a PT, when I'm done, when I'm finished up with kind of the rehab aspect of, an injury with someone, I usually recommend go do a class or go do yoga. And people are like, well, I got a yoga video. I was like, that's all well and good. But look.
No, go to a class.
If you go to a class, number one, you meet people, you see them doing it, they add motivation, but also you feel accountable. You get some accountability there. Like, man, I know people, or the instructor expects me to be there, and I got to show up. If you're, it's the same thing as like, oh, I've got a bike in my basement, but I never ride it. It's in your basement, so get it out. Even put it in your living room where you have to look at it every day, and maybe you'll ride it. But it's accountability. That's a big thing. That's a huge thing.
It's accountability. I agree with you 100%, Eugene. And the other thing I tell people is have backup. I'm a freak about backup. I've got my whole gym downstairs.
Yeah.
I have a membership at a club, and I have all my gear in my car. My girlfriend will see me literally. She's like, a couple of weeks ago, we're down at her place and stay on the beach, and it's a gorgeous day. I said, we're going to train outside. I rip out the ladder, the bands, everything. You can see it on Instagram and on Snapchat. I've got the bands tied to the rim of my car. I'm using my bands.
I saw that.
I'm like, well, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect for it to work.
All right, since we're on that, what do you carry in your car? What are some items that you carry? If you have to do like an impromptu, all right, 2 questions. What do you carry in your car? And if you travel, what do you take with you? What are some go-to items that you keep with you?
Perfect. Love this. In my car, I've got a hockey bag is the only thing that can survive me because I go client to client a lot of times.
Gotcha.
So in my car, agility ladders, resistance bands. I've got my KO8, which is a resistance band and suspension trainer, my AirFit, my sledgehammers, medicine balls, sometimes a mini trampoline. Yeah, always a mini trampoline. Obviously, my focus pads, my tie gloves, my tie pads, and my gloves. That's that's always in my car. Always in my car. On the road, my yoga mat or yoga towel, my yoga mat or yoga towel. My yoga mat or yoga towel, right? Or and my resistance bands. And a lot of times I'll take my KO8 with me because my KO8 will go from suspension training to resistance training.
KO8. I don't know if I know what that is. I don't know if I've seen that.
KO8.UK. It's only available in the UK right now.
KO8.UK.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I carry, I take some, obviously, yoga mat. Sometimes I like, and we can get into the kind of recovery tools. I like taking lacrosse ball or even foam roller. I like actually taking my TRX trainer, like my TRX stuff with me. I think that's kind of versatile.
Take the KO8 instead. You know why? Because you can do suspension and resistance training.
I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to look it up, man. I'm going to have to see what it's all about.
I'll hook you up with Karen. Karen's a great guy. He invented it out of necessity. I got to plug my laptop in. He invented it out of necessity because he's a trainer, and he said, "Why do we have to have 2 pieces of equipment?" And I love this idea. And actually, it's priced better than It's priced better than fortunately the TRX. I don't know why you're in a double screen here.
Boom, 2 of me can't handle it. Yeah. I carry a lot. Like, I have a yoga mat in my car all the time. Like I said, a foam roller, lacrosse balls. Yeah. I actually made one of those little percussion massage things. I made one.
I don't want to know how you made it. I just want to skip over that.
No, man. So the funny thing, this is the best part. So they call it like the Theraguns and stuff is what people know them as, or Tim Tam, I think. So I made one for like $100. I looked up some videos on YouTube. And the guy left all these links on, like, get this item here on Amazon, this on Amazon. So I started looking it up, like these pieces. And one of them, I started reading the reviews, and they're a little bit shady on what the item is used for. You can use your imagination, but it's for pleasure seeking of sorts. So you attach things to it. And I was like, that's not what I'm using it for, but it was funny. It actually works pretty well. I think it works well like a percussion massager for just kind of stimulating the blood, kind of getting the blood flowing, getting the tissue kind of woken up a little bit.
Well, it's the same thing for what they were telling you what they were used for too, right?
Nope.
Yes, it is.
Not quite. I always mess with you, and my coach, Chewy, man, he always screws with me at the gym. They've got a unique name for it, but. What's that?
This one.
So, as far as so like KO8, something you use. How
Yeah.
versatile are those things? What are things that you do with those items?
You name it, you can do it. Like, the reason I like the KO8, you go from suspension to bands in a second.
Okay.
So if I don't have them, I literally use my resistance bands. The all-purpose bands with the door anchor. Those, there's no movement you can't do with those.
Right.
None. And then of course you get your own body weight.
Right.
Yoga can be done anywhere, so that's a great thing.
Yep.
And you have a yoga towel. I mean, I do it. I'll do it. What's great about it, if you're doing hot yoga, you just turn up the heat in your hotel room and just crank it out. Or
Nice.
I've been known to be like, I'll be in a warm place like Dallas or something. I'll just take out my macro right by the pool and just do it myself. I don't care. You'll see my Burma Kearns hat and the sunglasses that basically says "fuck off" on my head, because I'm like, I'm doing my thing.
Do your
And
thing.
in the summer, I'm out here in the U.S. I mean, out in Massachusetts. Now that it's nice out, there's so many parks around here. I don't want to train indoors.
Right.
And one of my favorite toys in the summer is the Atlas ball. I got a 50-pound Atlas ball, and I'll beat the crap out of myself with that thing.
What kind of stuff do you do with that?
I got articles on this. You pick up, slam it, fireman carries, knees to it, and that's more jiu-jitsu and MMA, where you put it the ball. You can knee a stability ball, but knee a 50-pound Atlas ball is a bitch.
Yeah.
Bent over rows with it, tosses with it. Then my favorite thing to do it is to challenge myself at the end is full arm extension and try to walk. Well, I teach at a tennis camp over the summer, the fitness. So my goal the first year when I got the ball 2 years ago was to walk 100 yards at the end of the workout without putting it down, straight on, over my head. Well, my 50th was to walk 150 yards. I actually did 200 yards. I went all the way down, turned around, went all the way back.
So, Kevin, how did you kind of, you got some of these different things you like to use. How did you develop your style? Where'd you get your, because, there's 100, probably thousands of different ways to strength train. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do an exercise, a lot of different tools to use. So the variability is pretty vast. How did you develop your style, kind of from when you first started, when you graduated, or when you kind of did your initial training?
I'm way beyond that. I mean, when we were doing our initial training, people weren't into functional training. And then I got exposed to functional training through Perform Better. People like J.C. Santana, Mike Clark, Vern Gambetta, Mike Boyle, who else? Gary Gray, Gray Cook. All those guys exposed me to it. And I was a bodybuilder, and then I looked at this stuff, and I said, this stuff makes more sense. I got into all the medicine ball stuff and, rotate, 3 planes of movement, multiple chains, multiple joints moving. I went, this stuff is cool. Did that, started doing that like 99 and 98. And then over time, that was my programming for my clients. I got involved with Kenny Florian, back in 2006. And basically all I did is I took the perfect lab rat, because the big joke was he looked like, Dana White's joke was he looked like the fighter that doesn't look like a fighter. He looked like the accountant that you don't want to pick a fight with. But
he screws you up.
And if you look at the Sean Shirk fight, which I wasn't on, to the Dokanami Mishima fight, I rebuilt him in that time. He had all these injuries, and I went, okay, day one in my basement. And I put a formula together of step 1, strength hypertrophy, step 2, explosive power, step 3, gas in the tank. And it was basically a macro cycle. Okay, we got 6 months. We're going to do this cycle, strength hypertrophy for X amount, explosive power for X amount, gas in the tank, which is sport-specific for X amount. So our first cycle, strength and hypertrophy, was just to rebuild his core, rebuild this, and we used all functional strategies. Then explosive power was the next phase. More plyometrics, but plyometrics that didn't kill you. Plyometrics, agility ladder drills, all that stuff we started doing back then. And then we got into sport-specific, where we were designing circuits that look like a fight. I mean, there's movements that I can send you videos if you want from me when I go to seminars. People, or when I teach my certification, we have a whole certification system too. I teach my certification system. They're like, where did you come up with standing on a core board, the Reebok core board, with a band pulling you backwards, ability ball between your legs, and punch the post? So I go, well, that's like being in the open guard.
Right.
What I'm good at, and this is all what I'll say, is what I'm good at. I said, I'm not the best martial artist. I give myself maybe a B minus. What I'm good at is looking at a movement going, I can make an exercise for that.
Right.
You know,
No, that
and
makes sense.
what I did was when we got to sports specific, I said it has to look like sparring, but it's not sparring.
Right.
And then I came up with this goofy ratio. You know, people have been doing, because Arnold series out there now, but the people have been doing a 2-to-1 work ratio, as you know, for years. 30 on, 15 off, 30 seconds of work, 15 seconds off, or 45, all that stuff. Or, 30 on, 1 on, 30 off. So I started thinking about the exercises in the stations. And I said, okay, if we take 9 exercises for 30 seconds each, that's 270 seconds. That's a 5-minute round, right? You and I have all seen fights change the last 30 to 45 seconds, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I read an article on sprinters strengthening their toes to give them a 2% edge in sprinting. I mean, 2% in sprinting is huge. So I got this goofy idea. I said, what if we took 5 seconds extra per station? 5 times 9 is 45 seconds of extra gas. Mm-hmm. It may not sound like a lot, but 5 extra seconds is, look at, the average play in football is what, 15 seconds?
Something like that.
And then you look at hockey, it's 45 seconds. That's a long time. So you a fighter, you're talking 30 seconds of doing something, 35 seconds of doing something all out.
Right.
So we came up with the formula. So it's a 2.1. We used to call it 2.1 ratio, but it's a 2.12 ratio to 1. It worked. I did it with Kenny. It worked. He never ran out of gas. I did it with Marcus Davis. It worked. I did it with Daniel Grace. I did it with 15 UFC fighters, and the formula worked. And then I took that formula and then superimposed it on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So you take the macro cycle, or you take the event. So MMA is 5-minute rounds. So if it was 3-5, something like, okay, we got to build something that's about 17 minutes long. Give them a little extra gas. Now, if it was a championship fight, I would build it so it's like almost 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it would be 9 stations, 35 on, and it all worked out. It gave them an extra minute of gas all the time. Every guy that came to me says, when they started doing the formula, said, I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. And I got to tell my guys, I go, you won't lose the fight because of conditioning. That's right. Not what screws the fight. And the good part is you can take that and then go, what's your activity? Oh, jiu-jitsu, it's a 6-minute round, right? So now I got to build basically a 7-minute circuit, okay, or slightly longer. I took point karate, which is 2.5 minutes. Did the same thing. Basketball did the same thing. And then when you look into sports activity, when you look at positions, right? If you look at receiver, you look at cornerback, you just take that and you look at what they do and then formulate the plan around that. So the great thing about it is our formula. It's not just about training fighters; it's about training anybody.
So the 3 phases that you just discussed, how do you know how long to stay in one? Does it depend on how much time you have to train? Does it depend on the individual? Like, say, most training camps, they say, 8 weeks for fights, maybe 8 weeks. Are you looking at your starting point versus where you need to be? Or kind of how do you know when you're ready to get out of that hypertrophy phase to that next phase?
Well, hypertrophy we always use as the building phase, right?
Sure.
I always tell my fighters and my clients or anybody athlete-wise, I said, what good is a $100,000 roof if the basement's $5,000? If you got a piece of shit basement, you got to build the foundation. If without the foundation, so you got to spend at least 4 to 6 weeks, if not a little bit longer, 6 weeks on that foundation to get to explosive power. Explosive power, I always gave people, because if you read Dr. Chu's book, you got to be really careful with plyos, because if you do them too long, what happens? Your joints break down. Right. And when I start doing plyos, I'll do different stuff. Like I'll use what's this called? Jump sport fitness trampolines. We'll do plyos and those, save your legs, save your knees. Right. And the carryover benefit's huge. Now, I'll usually do that 4 to 6 weeks, and then gas in the tank is usually 4 to 6 weeks.
Gotcha.
My ideal model is 3 months.
Okay.
And, the famous saying Kenny used to say that you'll hear him in interviews years ago, I preface Kenny because he was one of our main fighters, is there is no off season. These guys, they fight and they win and then they screw off for a month. That's just out the window. You can't do that anymore. You fight, you win. Unless you're injured, you're back in the gym after a week off. Back to hypertrophy phase. And the good part during that phase, of any phase of exercise, as you know, is you start playing around with performance tweaks.
Yeah.
So let's say you're doing a one-legged deadlift with a kettlebell with one foot in the ground. Okay, well, that got easy. If the client, like Kenny, would progress really fast, I'm like, okay, so how do we – I wrote an article on this not long ago for Train Magazine, challenging central nervous system demand. So how do we challenge the central nervous system demand more? Okay, well, let's go one step below. Put them on a half foam roller first.
Okay.
Then go to maybe an Airex pad. Then go to a Bosu bubble side down.
Gotcha.
Just keep progressing it.
Right.
And then you start messing around with angles. Okay, if he's going just folding forward, he's just going through the sagittal plane. Why not have him rotate?
Right.
Well, technically, he is contralateral, so he is activating the rotational plane too. So it's perform. What I like to make it simple and stupid. It's a performance tweak, right?
Gotcha.
Like you take a medicine ball drill and a chest pass, and it's easy. Say, okay, then stand on one leg. Okay, great. Now you're standing on one leg. Now putting on a half foam roller. I got Kenny to the point where he was on a voodoo board throwing the ball against the wall. So he's chest passing on a roller board. Right. And that was his rest.
Nice. So what do you like to do? And you don't have to kind of give away all your trade secrets or whatever it is. What do you like to do for hypertrophy? Like, is there a number of reps, sets you like to do? Is there certain exercises? For me personally, squats, deadlifts, those have to be in there in some capacity, in my opinion. People always complain about back pain. Should I squat? Should I deadlift if I have back pain or back problems? And I was like, well, if you're squatting or deadlifting properly, you shouldn't have pain in your back, with doing those things, if you're doing it properly.
I would say what I like to do is I like to find like a rotating model. So that way you're not just sitting there being bored. Like people can do 3 sets of squats and they're like taking a break in between.
Yes.
So I'll go from I'll hit the core first. We have this whole core killer that we do. I learned from JC Santana. You learn it too if you want to come to one of our certification courses. There's a shameless plug. Just look us up on the web. And you're going to bring to Kentucky one of these days, right?
Yes. You're going to come to Kentucky. With that accent, you got to come to Kentucky. We're all going to know you're out of town.
Want to come out there? Come on, Southerners, bring me out. So, what I'll do is kind of a rotating circuit. So, I like deadlifts. I like single leg deadlifts with a kettlebell better. Okay. Because it's just more functional for what I want to do. Okay. You go from kettlebell deadlifts, and then I'll go push, pull, rotation, that whole formula. So we'll do that, push and pull movements, and then, some other ancillary movements. Like instead of I'm not a big fan of curls, but I do love dumbbell uppercuts. Okay. Because you are activating the biceps, but you also activate the legs, and it's a more functional movement it's a functional movement for MMA, but it's also a functional movement for people in general. Mm-hmm. And then, that will stay for like I said, 6 weeks and go from there. But I would say people once ask me, give me some of your top exercises. I'm like, okay, single leg deadlift is number 1. Number 2, push up, because you can do a chest press, you can do a bench press all you want, but as JC Santana would say, if you can't do a push up, if you can't push your own weight, what difference does that make? So I'm a big fan of doing them off a stability ball or all different crazy angles. Mm-hmm. Like I always tell this big joke when I own the gym of Mongo. Mongo was the giant guy that can bench press 500 pounds. Mm-hmm. Walk in the gym. Here I am all 5'7". He's 6'9" and 500 pounds. And we got all this stability ball and functional stuff in. And he says, Kevin, what's this stability ball stuff? It's crap. I go, really, Mongo? Mind you, I'm looking like this. I'll tell you what. If I can do more push-ups on one leg on the stability ball than you can do, will you integrate the stability ball? Yeah, I get you, no problem. So I roll forward, I'm on my toe, have one leg pegged up to the side, do 50 reps, switch feet in the air, and do the other one. He gets to his knees, falls off the ball. Gets to his knees, falls off the ball. He goes, I don't understand. I go, look, I said, this is all about integration. I go, this will help your bench pressing. Okay. Yes. That's how you introduce it. It's like JC used to say, you just got to sneak it in there. Don't tell them the truth. Right. They don't need to know. And that to me is impressive. Then I would say the next movement would be pull-ups. If you're not doing pull-ups, why not? If you're not doing an inverted row or something like a pull-up, right? Why aren't you? To me, it's like, why aren't you? And then probably, people aren't doing a plank. Come on. Personally, I'd rather have a full shoulder rollout. I think for your complete, if you want to hit the abs and completely, and people get so confused about the core. What's the core? Is it your abs? Yes. Is it your glute medius? Yes. Is it your? I'm like, yeah. Just take a goddamn crayon and make the X. There it is. Because they don't trust me with sharp objects. And just that's it's everything.
Yeah, everything for sure.
They're doing crunches and like I'm working my core. I'm like part of it.
Yep, one aspect. Yep.
I'm like, you don't see little baby, as you know, your daughter's rolling, right? That's a big thing. That's all core. She ain't doing abs going, right, Dad?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where I come from on that.
Right. Yeah, I think it will. It kind of depends on what you're lifting for. Like, what's your goal? Is your goal to have a big chest, or like you said, be a bodybuilder? Then you're going to do some of these just, strict curls or, bench press or strict rows, those type of things, which I like those things. I do them. I don't do them exclusively. I obviously add other things to it, but I do feel like some of those exercises are kind of building blocks for everything else, for sure.
Compound movements.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing. How would you, so we just kind of discussed one aspect of kind of how you did hypertrophy. So what about a jiu-jitsu player? Somebody that just strictly jiu-jitsu. Would you, and so it's kind of a two-part question. What kind of a few exercises that you would add for them? And also, would you change that up for somebody that's got more of a top game versus somebody that plays more of a bottom game?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For jiu-jitsu, then you get into a little bit more isometrics. Instead of just doing pull-ups, I'm going to probably do a towel hang, anything like that. That's going to be more defined for the sport. I might have them do a little bit more rotational mechanics because it's extremely important. Instead of just a regular push-up, rotational push-ups.
Right.
I mean, there's so much more involved in that. I also think some of the jiu-jitsu guys, no offense, their glutes can be weak because they're constantly opening their hips.
100%, yes.
So I'm like, you got to turn your hips in a little bit more, and then you'll find them also that they'll be tight in the adductors and loose on the outside of the thighs.
You are man, stuff I work on all the time, tell people about all the time. Posterior chain, you're rounded, you're closed off, your knees are tucked to your chest, you're not letting somebody pass your guard, so your knees are in tight, protecting your neck, shrugging those shoulders. So, that whole kind of, I guess, upper cross syndrome or lower cross syndrome where, upper traps are tight, front of the neck muscles are kind of loose and weak. You're looking at pecs are tight.
Yes.
Muscles on the back of the shoulder blades, those are loose and weak because that's basically what you do. And people don't understand that you have to counteract all that stuff. You have to counteract. And if you counteract that stuff, you're going to be better. You're going to be better for it. I think one of the best, and we talk about functional exercises, I think one of the best exercises that if I had any jiu-jitsu player do would be a Turkish get-up.
Absolutely.
I think that for me has so many components, so many elements of shoulder stability, bridging hip stability, kind of functional rotation and movement, getting to a kneeling position. There's so many components there. And then you can add obviously different variables, adding a kettlebell, bottoms up kettlebell. There's a ton of stuff to do. And that, you can even break it down in different parts, focus different parts,
I'll take that even one better. I'm like, I think a Turkish get-up is important for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Because getting on and off the floor, the big problem in this country is people where most hip fractures happen where? These people don't know how to fall.
Yep. Oh,
They don't know how to get back up. Now, I hate to cut you off, so I gotta hit the rack soon because I gotta be up at 3:30.
Okay, awesome.
But let me know when you want to do this again.
Yeah, Kevin. So thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll definitely. There's a lot more stuff I wanted to get into. Kind of how you got involved with, Mark Delagrati and Kenny Florian and all those guys. What's that?
We'll get there.
Yeah. And we want to hear about your books and all that stuff. And
Sure.
so if somebody's interested, you said you have a program that you like to that you kind of travel and you teach, conditioning program. Where can people get more information on you, and where can they follow you on social media?
Berman Kearns. Everything's Berman Kearns.
So BURNWITHKEARNS.
You got it. BurnWithKearns.com.
I'll leave a link down below, and Instagram is Burn with Kearns as well.
And Skype is Burn with Kearns. LinkedIn is Kevin Kearns. Facebook is Burn with Kearns. Twitter is Burn with Kearns. Yeah, it's all Burn with Kearns. Branding,
awesome.
branding.
So people can reach out to you on those platforms. As far as, do you do anything as far as specific training, like long distance type stuff? So if somebody's not in the area, you're in Boston, I think, correct?
Yeah, I've driven in to train fighters. I had somebody a few years ago for 10 weeks driving into Connecticut.
Okay.
Ready? I mean, you name it, I do it. I fly.
And you do online? Do you do online kind of prescription of exercise, stuff like that?
Yeah, we've got a new program called beachboddad.com. It's basically fitness, motivation, nutrition for guys in my age group. So it's all online. They get me, they get a program, and it's a 65-day transformation. So it's called Beach Dad. It's got a closed Facebook group. So I'm going to be launching the site soon. We've got a few clients right now around the world, but we can do the online training. We can go in. You're talking about, I've got the whole cooking services because that's one of the things I used to do for the fighters to help them cut weight, cook. So, we kind of got it all. And if they want to, this is the type of guy I am. I said, if they want to, hey, my cell phone's always on unless I'm sleeping. 508-404-8503. So that's 508-404-8503. Yeah, I may not pick up. I'm going to be busy. That's the way it works.
Kevin, thank you. We got to do it again, man. There's a ton of stuff I want to go over. I think it was very helpful.
Hit me up next week.
You're the man. I appreciate it. We'll do it. We'll do it again. Absolutely. We'll do a part 2. All right. Thanks, man. Have a good night. I appreciate it.
The K. That's called the double K, guys.
What is that? What's K mean?
Coach Kearns.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know. I wasn't down with the
gang sign of the family. That's all.
I don't know. I'm not down with the gang signs, man. I don't know those too well.
The clan. The Kearns clan.
Gotcha.
Kevin,
thank you for your time, brother. I appreciate it so much. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Thanks to Kevin Kearns for joining me on the podcast. Guys, we went over a bunch of stuff. It was awesome having him on the podcast. Make sure to check him out at burnwithkearns.com. Also, Burn with Kearns on Instagram and Twitter, and even give him a call as he left his phone number. So if you guys have questions, specific things that he can help you out with, man, he had a ton of great information on the podcast. Definitely we're going to do another one. There's a lot of stuff we wanted to cover that we didn't get to, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And jiu-jitsutherapist.com for more podcasts and strength and recovery tips. Injuries you're dealing with, reach out to me, guys, and I'll be glad to help you all out. And thank you all for tuning in to the podcast.